What is up, guys? Welcome back to the SuperCoach Experience podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Savage, the coach of the Savage Turbos / the Canoe Crew, whatever's going to float my boat at the time. We're live on YouTube at the moment, and I'm here to answer some Patreon questions that were asked in Patreon. You're welcome to ask questions on YouTube as well, but we are centering the podcast around the Patreon questions at the moment. We have a couple, but the main one here, I wanted to jump on to do a Q&A because me and Timmy went through a little discussion on Tuesday about Tino and his ACL and how he's going to come back. We've got a bit more information on that, and I want to bring it to light. So we have one of our friends in the Canoe Crew chat who is actually a doctor. People who are much smarter than myself listen for my advice, which I find absolutely astonishing. Just the words he was using, just so crazy. So I'm going to play a little snippet of something that to address the concerns me and Timmy had around Tino's ACL injury. We have Miko live in the YouTube chat. Shaka brah. So yeah, we're going to play Patrick, the doctor, the NRL doc. We're going to play his concerns over Tino's ACL. Let's go.
Hey guys, my name's Patrick. I'm a doctor in the sports med space, sort of orthopedic space. Just wanting to shed a bit of light on this ACL situation with Tino. So Savs and Timmy were talking about how he might be slow to return and how his confidence may take a little while to build up. And I just sort of wanted to answer a few questions about like why and the reason it takes players a long time to come back from an ACL, but also why I think it's probably not that big of a deal for Tino. So the thing with an ACL is classically you have the surgery and then you spend 6 weeks really not doing a whole lot on it, maybe a little bit of movement, maybe walking, that's about it. And really for the first 3 months after the ACL reconstruction surgery, you're only returning to range of movement exercises, so you're not strengthening it yet at this point. Then you need to return to strengthening. So for these boys, they've got intense physios, strength and conditioning coaches. The strength will return quickly or more quickly than your standard patient. But the thing with the ACL is that it's a critical ligament in terms of complex pivot shift movement, so that cutting, angular change, stepping and those sort of things. So not only do you have to strengthen your quads and the muscles around your knee, then you have to retrain that proprioception, so thinking and knowing where the knee is in space, so to speak. And then from there you move to complex movements, so running, stepping, cutting, those sort of things. And overall, for your standard ACL, it takes about 9 months. So Timmy was also talking about maybe some of the recurrence being an issue and the psychology behind the confidence. So the recurrence is really more important or a little bit more impactful in terms of mechanism. So your classic mechanism is the pivot shift. So you're going one way, you step to go, running right, step to go left, ACL goes bang. And you're definitely right that the recurrence rate's higher post a reconstruction, and that psychology of being able to step with the amount of force necessary to cut and change direction takes a lot of sports psychology and a lot of psychological input to optimise. However, for Tino, I'm pretty sure his mechanism was being fallen on in a tackle, like it was an awkward twisting injury in a tackle, so not that classic stepping, Quade Cooper type ACL. So his confidence should return a little more quickly, like he probably won't need as intense a sports psychology. I guess Timmy was also talking about he won't run as hard and these sort of things. So depending on the technique you use to reconstruct an ACL, there's half a dozen different techniques. Often you can lose some terminal velocity, but that's like the academic top speed at which you run. So for a player like Tino, who's doing a lot of work through the middle, that's not going to be an issue. He can still run as hard as he can because he's not really a terminal velocity type player. So the example I've got written down here is Reece Walsh. He would be crippled by an ACL. You know, if you took a yard of pace off Reece Walsh and reduced his ability and confidence to cut and jink and jive and change directions, he'd be done. You know, he would be absolutely wiped out as the impact player that he is. So for someone like Tino, who's doing a lot more upper body work, offloading, work through the middle, tackling, his ACL probably shouldn't impact him that much. Whereas I think Sav was saying, for the backs, absolutely. If you're knocking that yard of pace off and you reduce their ability to step, you're going to significantly reduce that top end ability they have as players. So I think all in all, I could talk about, for about half an hour going on about different ways we reconstruct and different rehab protocols. And, the NRL physio who works just down the road from me probably has, his physio side of things from that proprioception and that complex movement ends of it. But I think the takeaway is that I wouldn't take into account the ACL as much as everyone is saying. In terms of RCG coming on in minutes, sure, there's other reasons, but purely from the ACL, especially for a middle forward, I think it's probably not going to be as bad as everyone thinks. Thanks very much, guys. I appreciate it.
So, interesting comments there regarding Tino. I guess my first comment on it, the thing that really stuck out to me here was the way he injured himself. A lot of players tend to injure themselves just out of nowhere. They'll be running and just bang, the ACL is gone. He was actually in a tackle when it happened, so the fear of running probably won't be in his mind. And whether you're mentally strong or not, it's always in the back of your mind. But with how he was injured, I don't think he'll actually have that mental scarring, just from what I've heard from there. So I really like that insight, and that just makes me a bit more comfortable with potentially starting with Tino. Didn't hear anything from the clip. I've got to listen to that back. I'll put the audio on the Patreon straight away so you can listen to it. But it was a 5-minute little audio clip. That's rattled me that hasn't played on the YouTube platform. That's crazy. But pretty much, in recap, don't worry about Tino. He's a middle forward that doesn't rely on stepping. And, we're very keen on Tino. And also, Tino has the same birthday as me. Why aren't I starting with him? He's he should be my SuperCoach, inner beast. I should be starting with Tino 100%. But we do have some questions in the Patreon group that I am going to answer. And firstly, we've got some topics. Tino's ACL, we've gone through that. I think at the price, he's a steal. I'm not starting with him at the moment. I think Terrell May is more important, but he could make his way into my second row potentially. Spencer Lenu. I had a question on Spencer Lenu in one of the YouTube comments, and I just thought I'd touch on him very quickly. I'll share my screen up here at the moment. So we've got Spencer Lenu on the side here. Let's look at his minutes over. Let's look over 50 first. He has a 53 minute for 48. He has a 51 minute for 41. So not much sample size. I don't know whether that's he actually can't do the minutes or whether, Terrell May took the minutes that when the others were out that he lacked. But then, he didn't really play above 45 minutes too often. Just looking at this, it doesn't really look like he has upside. He has a score of 65 from 32 minutes with a PPM of 2. Did he have any attacking stats there? He had a try with a line break. He had a line break. So, I understand the price for Spencer Lenu, but I don't really love it. I just think Nafahu White is the guy that's going to really benefit from that. And, I just think Nafahu White is the guy to kind of look for. All right, we have one more. Tavita Totola. Someone on the YouTube asked for Tavita Totola. Timmy had some stats on Totola. I actually saw a report the other day that he could potentially medically retire, which is crazy. But just looking here, 51 minutes, 46 points, 57 minutes, 57 points. He's a big minute forward. And he's a very cheap price. He's about $390K. I think if he's healthy, he's good to start the season. That's when you look at him. But I think 100% it is a bit awkward at the moment with just like his injury lingering and all that sort of stuff. So let's go to the Patreon. We have some comments in the Patreon group. The first one is David717. One person from the Patreon is in the chat. It's Silico on YouTube. Yo, what up? Looking forward to seeing this in Patreon. Firstly, thank you for tuning into the Patreon. It is very, I wouldn't say it's slow in there at the moment. A lot of our data and all our info is going in there at the moment, but I definitely expect it to pick up very shortly. We do have a nice little community in there. And we opened a Discord today, but that's open to the public. So if you do want to join, just go over to our Instagram stories. But David717, love your thoughts, boys. Plan at the moment is to start with May at the front row, looking at starting Barnett, Horsburgh and White in the second row and switching them back to front row as I fill out the second row from week 6 to 10. I think these guys are where I'd want to end up anyway and no need to trade them later on. I'm looking at front row compared to second row at the moment. I really like that strategy, David. I think the players like White, Horsburgh and Barnett, they're players you want to have them in front row, but you really can't start with all of them, but you can start with them at second row. And I feel like it's a bit of FOMO thinking, no, we need the high upside guys in second row, like the Britton Nickeras, the Hamoli Alakuatus. You can still kind of do that. I think you can start with someone like Barnett, but then you can fill it up with Nafahu White, Corey Horsburgh. You can put... Jai Arrow's potentially one that's a second row, front row, but I think the front row cheapies are a lot better than the second row cheapies at the moment. So I like the idea of putting Horsburgh, Nafahu White in the second row. And I think May is a lock, not a lock as in number 13, but I think he's a lock. Like he's number one picked for me. I think he's got to be in the front row. So if you do want any of the other guns and, it looks like you want Mitch Barnett, I think with Tohu Harris retiring, we did talk about stats with Mitch Barnett on the Tuesday podcast. He pretty much averages 78 without Tohu, and he averages 78 minutes or something like that, which is 11 points up from what he's priced at. So I like that. And there's a good chance he potentially goal kicks if Tanner Boyd doesn't get a spot in the side. I don't know if he will. It's got a lot of work to do, but I like the shout. I really like the thought process because, at the moment, I've still got Matty Nicholson in my second row. I think Zach Hosking starts at second row. I think if you can shift a Corey Horsburgh, Nafahu White down there for that guy, then that's someone who's going to make money. And then you just move up to the front. And I think, as I said before, the front row forward cheapies are really good at the moment. Dan, in our Patreon, is Tamari Martin a good option to start with if he is named? I can't see them going Boyd after TMM's performance minus SJ last season. This ties in, do we think the Wires will come out firing after missing the 8 last season? Oh, that's a good question. I think with James Fisher-Harris coming to the club, I think they're going to be tough. They won't be easy beats. I don't know if you kind of remember the Bulldogs a couple of years ago. They'd be tough to score points against, but they really couldn't score points themselves. And I kind of see that being the Warriors. And, I'm seeing talk of Roger Tuivasa-Sheck going to fullback. And, I just think that makes them so predictable. And I hate it so much. I hate it. Hold on. NRL SuperCoach. Don't get me wrong. I think Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is a great fullback, but I don't think he's the fullback that the Warriors need at the moment. They need creativity. I was vouching for Chance. I think Tuapiki needs to be the fullback. Tuapiki is the future. There's a lot of young gun fullbacks at the moment. He reminds me of Keanu Keeney. I think you put Tuapiki at fullback. That solves your goal kicking issue. So, as much as we want Mitch Barnett to go there, I think Tuapiki just makes more sense. You put Roger on the wing. They've lost Montoya. I think you put Roger on the wing, and that solves that problem. And it also helps Roger with his his yardage game. I think his yardage game is his best asset by far, and by putting him on the wing, you're getting that out of him. Whereas if you take him off, then you you put him in center, you put him in fullback. I think you really need ball playing for him. I'm looking for Timari Martin. He'll be under Martin. I can't find him. Looking for him in the NRL SuperCoach Pro app. Chris Keating, haven't heard much chat about the Roosters' ridiculous bye schedule. Play all 3 bye rounds and then all 3 rounds after the bye. That people tend to find just as difficult. Oh, that's a good chat. We have a lot of cheapies in the Roosters at the moment, and I think by then Teddy will definitely be an option. Connor Watson. Oh, probably not Connor Watson. He'll probably be in Origin. We'll have Dom Young available then. Who else? We've got Angus Crichton will be playing Origin. I just don't know about the Roosters this year, really. I'm just not sure about the Roosters, to be honest. Tamari Martin. Someone help me here. How do I find Timari Martin in NRL SuperCoach stats? This is great audio listening potential, guys. I'm so sorry. Timari Martin. He's legit not here. Oh, there he is. He was there the whole time. All right, let's go to Timari Martin. In times where he played 7, 93, 115, 111, 102, 29, 43 and 60. And then he came off the bench, played number 18 and scored 105. So that's just on my other screen here. Obviously, he killed it last year. But that was a year where they weren't expecting him to lead the side and play number 7. I think we've seen in years past, Dream Buller come onto the scene, absolutely killed it at fullback. We saw he took a bit of time to get going last year because, sides tend to start doing video on you and start working out your weaknesses. They start working out your strengths and shut them down. And I think with Tamari Martin, his 5th tackle options were no good. He tended not to be able to direct the team very good, but his attack was amazing, and they tend to win games because they knew they were already behind the ball. And, if he gets that number 7, they know already they're behind the 8 ball with their roster. They might just perform out of their skins. And if you have a gut feeling on Tamari Martin, I don't mind if you did it, but I see the stats from last year and they look great and all. I just think there's going to be more emphasis on, Tamari Martin. How is he going to come out and who's their number 7? And once everyone knows who their number 7 is, they're going to pretty much prepare for whoever that is. And in last year, they didn't really have time to do that. They didn't have a sample size to go off Tamari Martin running the side. I don't know if I explained that very well. I'm not very good at explaining things like that, but I hope I explained it well enough. Tristan Warner. If going 3-gun fullbacks, run through a few combos that balance out the cash, e.g. Turbo, Latrell, and perhaps... If going 3-gun fullbacks, run through a few combos that balance out cash. Example, Turbo, Latrell, and perhaps Pappy or a medium price fullback. I get what you're doing with potentially looking at different types of fullbacks for your third one, like Latrell and Tommy. They're so expensive. I don't know if you can like going a third expensive one, just it ruins the balance of your team. I 100% get that. But look at my side at the moment. I've got Reece Walsh there at the moment, 738,000. I find him to be slightly cheaper. He's only 100k more than Pappy at the moment. Madge, he's got the draw. He's got such a good draw. But then Latrell and Tommy, they're the expensive ones. But looking at my side, I've got a gun in my center. I've got 2 guns in my centers. My 5'8s are lacking, but I don't think there's a gun 5'8 to start with. I do like Dylan Brown, but I'm not sacrificing one of these guns for Dylan Brown, if that makes sense. And then Nico Hines and Sandon Smith, arguably I'm going without Cleary for it. I just think, Cleary starts slow. he always does. And then, like, you go into my second row. Yeah, they're filled with mid-range options, but I've got Homoli Olakwatu there. You go to my front row. I've got Terrell May, and I've got all the cheapies. Double up cheapies in the hooker. I'm not really, like, missing out on too many places. Yes, I have gone the double cheapie at hooker, but I've got the 3-gun fullbacks, and I think you've got to build your side around the fullbacks you want, not kind of build your side around... not just have your last option being the fullback, because the fullbacks are the big scorers. I understand, like, if you think going a Walsh to a Pappy saves you 100K and you can potentially upgrade, I've got Will Price in my side at the moment, so I could upgrade him to, like, someone who potentially is playing at the moment, because I don't think Will Price gets a spot, so I'm going to be in trouble when team lists come if my team's still like that. But I really think you pick your fullbacks and then you balance your team around that. You pick your fullbacks and your halves and just go from there. See what cheapies are available. And then I think if you're going to go Pappy, you may as well just go Yongi, to be honest. Like, I don't think Yongi's going to score much less than Pappy, and Pappy's ceiling, he just hasn't had that ceiling for a long time, especially since he lost the goal kicking. I'm so sorry. I just had to cough just then. Greg, assuming Fletcher Sharp gets to 6, how does that impact KP? Now, there was news that came out yesterday that Adam O'Brien is training with Tyson Gamble at number 7 and Fletcher Sharp at number 6. And, like, we could have guessed 1 million halves combos, and I would have not guessed this at all. I hate this so much. I get Fletcher Sharp is an absolute weapon. You want to get him into the game. It seems like he's got a big future. He's not going to be a long-term number 1 at the club, because obviously you got KP there. You want to keep him happy. You want to put him in a position where he's got his hands on the ball. I get it completely. I actually don't hate him at number 6. It's the number 7. Like, constantly chopping and changing the number 7. I think the chopping and changing of the number 7 hurts KP more than the number 6 does. Because I think the number 6, if the number 6 is someone like Fletcher Sharp, who is actually dangerous with the ball, then it takes away from KP, which might sound like a bad thing, but the Newcastle have no one. The game plan for the defensive side is shut down KP. If you've got a weapon like Fletcher Sharp at 5'8", then, they kind of got to look both ways for him as well. If his signature is dummy and pass at 5'8", then maybe the third time he goes for the dummy, he goes out the back to Kalen Ponga, and Kalen Ponga gets a try that he wasn't meant to, and, that bumps his score up to another 30 than what he would have got of just carrying the side by himself. So I think what I like about Fletcher Sharp is it just adds something. It just adds something to Newcastle, and Newcastle's roster is quite weak at the moment. So I like Fletcher Sharp at number 6. I hate Gamble at number 7. Gamble is a goer. I love Gamble. I just don't know if he's the right 7. They've got Phoenix Crossland, Jack Cogger, Jackson Hastings. As much as I hate all the reports about Jackson Hastings and everything like that, like, he was the best 7 for the side. There seems to be a theme going around that he's kind of the guy. It seems like something happens everywhere he goes, and there is one common denominator, and that's Jackson Hastings. So you've kind of got to read the room and kind of think, oh, maybe he probably is a problem, but he was the best 7. That being said, you can't really have a toxic person in a side like Newcastle. I think Newcastle need to try and be as tight as possible, and if Gamble at number 7 helps, then their game plan just has to be give the ball to Ponga, and if their forwards do their job, Gamble plays a simple role, Fletcher Sharp at least threatens the line, then they could do well. It's crazy. It sounds crazy, and I hated it. I still do hate it, but it really could simplify everyone's role and just really help KP shine. Maybe I'm looking at this too positively. Maybe I am. But anyway, that's it for the podcast. 25 minutes in. Thank you for listening to my dribble. We are back on next Tuesday, maybe Sunday. We might have another team reveal from someone else on a Sunday. So tune in. We'll see you next week. Maybe we'll just ask one more question. We've got another question on YouTube. You got in just in time, Alex. Alex Raffini, what do you think of Pierre Cora as a shout? Let's go to Pierre Cora. You know what? Let's have a look. I think you might be on something. I'm looking at hookers, that's why. 402,000 Pierre Cora. 402,000 Pierre Cora. I think that's a very good price, and I'm obviously hot on the Broncos. In the past, I don't necessarily love the Broncos. Pierre Cora, let's look at these stats from last year's price of 400. Finished the season like a dud, 39 minutes, 17, 80 minutes, 38, 72 minutes, 45, 60 minutes, 59. You know, he didn't really score above 65. But we see that potential with Pierre Cora. Like, we know he's got that potential. I'm pretty sure I played him in this Panthers game, round 3 for a 57. I was stoked with that. Let's have a look at Broncos draw. It's also injury. Like, if he stays injury-free and he plays 80 minutes every week, then he's just someone who can really turn it on, and I'm confident he could do well. But let's go to the draw for the first 6 weeks. We've got the Broncos. So they got the Roosters, Canberra, North Queensland, Dolphins, Tigers, and then the Roosters again. So they got the Roosters twice in the first 6 weeks, and I think the Roosters are going to go like a busted. I think the Broncos are going to do really well. I think the Broncos win at least 3 of those opening 6 rounds. And I like Reece Walsh. So I'm very interested. You've got me interested, Alex. I do like Pierre Cora. I think maybe, last year, maybe a lot of people are scarred from him. He's starting at a very similar price, if not less. What did he start at last year? He started at 426,000, and we all started with him. Pierre Cora is in my side, guys. Pierre Cora is in my side. Over and out. We'll see you next week.